Racial tension, Washington, here at home, my goodness.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
You know, I think a lot of us are trying to figure out what's going on when it comes to some of the racial tension that we have here in the country. Forgive the analogy or the visual. I'm hoping this is the end of a bad flu, you know, where you cough up the phlegm. But everyone goes, "Oh, you okay?" Actually, no, I feel pretty good. It's just you know that, because there's a lot of phlegm that's being coughed up here. And I don't know if it's part of a deathly pneumonia or whether it's the tail end of a bad cold and you still feel okay. Ricardo Pitz Wiley is here. I've missed him. I haven't had him on the show, and he'll be on here in a few minutes. He's the, well, there's been a management change, but he's the principal of the Mixed Magic Theater in Pawtucket, and he handles a lot of these issues through theater. But he's a very, very smart guy, and I'm looking forward to talking with him about this stuff. In the meantime, welcome in on this Thursday evening. Let me just make a couple of notes. I've been following on both the TV and the radio this story of the principal in Providence, Violet Lamar, who is on paid administrative leave. We have a headline here, I believe, Jess. Thank you. Here's what happened today in court. I was in court along with Dan McGowan, who writes for that headline. And of course, this is the courthouse, and you see that's the principal, who never, I don't think, should have been charged in this particular situation. Mug shots and everything else. All she didn't do is report to DCYF in a 24-hour period the complaints that students have brought to her about physical touching that a gym teacher, who now is charged with sexual assault, had allegedly done to them. The case is as simple as you want to make it and as complicated as you want to make it. There's a lot of witness testimony that I've seen that will get to all the nuances of who said what report was filed, and all that kind of a thing. But at the end of the day, what we learned today is that when this thing happened in May of last year, the superintendent and his immediate middle manager, the executive director who oversees all the elementary schools, were unaware of the 2016 law that demands 24-hour response to DCYF as a first move by anybody who is a reporter, meaning an adult over 18. So the principal didn't know either. But there's a line of succession of ignorance of this law, which was either not well articulated, buried somewhere, I don't know. I think that's mitigating defense for this principal. It's a learning lesson. Whatever internal discipline needs to happen, fine. Otherwise, she's had a stellar career. She needs to go back into school, and everybody needs to sharpen up the legislation and sharpen up their awareness. Charging her exclusively with a crime for this, misdemeanor or not, is a career hurter, if not ender. And it's just the whole system is out of order. Final arguments on that tomorrow, and we'll talk about it next week as well, because we tape our Friday shows on Thursday, and we just did, and it's Super Bowl, and it's Gresh, and it's Yanni, and it's fun. Meanwhile, this is not fun. Hendricken has this little controversy, which I guess isn't so little. Half the world is upside down here in Rhode Island because the principal of the school resigned immediately after 40 years of service based on some kind of voyeur video that shows him saying something like this, and all you get is this with no context. That way I can take care of all the N and the K, referring to people of color, African Americans, and Jewish people. Who knows who, what, where, and how, but the guy split the diocese through the bishop, makes this big statement. I think everybody needs to calm down and get some clarity on this. The words are powerful, damaging, shouldn't be used. But man, are we hair trigger. I'm sure Ricardo has a thought about that as well. But the big conversation is DACA, the president, blank holes, and all of that. Here is the latest headline on a government shutdown that could be happening by tomorrow. Who knows? You know, 11th hour, they'll tie it down for another 6 days and try to figure it out. Here's the latest on it, though, real quick.
GOP House leaders wanted to vote on a short-term spending deal today that would keep the government open until February and would include a 6-year reauthorization of the Children's Health Insurance Program. Conservative support was already wavering. Then President Trump tweeted this morning that CHIP should be part of a long-term solution, not a 30-day or short-term extension. It's the latest example of confusing White House statements that are frustrating Republicans.
I don't know whether it's clear to the president what we're trying to do is reauthorize CHIP long term and not just for 30 days.
Democrats are insisting on a deal to fix DACA, the program that allows undocumented immigrants brought to America as children to live and work here. But the president has rejected 2 previous bipartisan deals struck in the House and the Senate.
What they want in return is continuously a moving target, and it continuously expands.
President Trump insists his conditions have not changed. He says he will agree to a DACA deal in exchange for money to build a wall along the Mexican border.
The president is demanding $18 billion for the project. This morning, he tweeted, "If there is no wall, there is no deal."
Which is completely different from last week when he sat in the middle of the entire bipartisan group and said, hey, listen, whatever they bring me, I'll sign and take the heat. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
I didn't bring you here for DACA specifically or government shutdowns, but you're a wise man on many levels. Do you have a thought on that?
Well, of course I do. You know, when you are moving the goalposts constantly, nobody can make a deal with anybody when the goalposts keep moving. And as an African American, we have a lot of experience in seeing the goalposts move all the time to create new situations where no real progress can be made. This, in some ways, should have been a simple fix, but when you're trying to keep campaign promises that were ridiculous from the beginning, then you're going to get a ridiculous conclusion result all the time. You know, build a wall. You know, okay, it's not going to stop anything. It didn't stop anything before. It's not going to stop anything now. The problem is not about building a wall. The problem is that has to be solved is creating a situation where people want to be in their own countries, and then the promise that we're going to get the Mexicans to pay for it. Well. So you're trying to keep a promise to your base, right. but your base is not the country. It's not even the majority of the country. So it's a ridiculous issue made more ridiculous by a ridiculous promise.
All right, that's a non-ridiculous answer. Let me go backwards, and then we'll go back, and then we'll go to the whole language the president used and everything that is derived from that. Are you getting anything out of this Hendricken story?
Well,
I'm obviously bothered by the words that have been reported, but doesn't a guy deserve to be heard? Or?
Well, he was heard. You know,
meaning in the tape.
If the tape is authentic, he was heard. The question is, was he speaking his heart, or was he just speaking to the politics of the moment? And I want to go back to something you said in your intro about a bad cold that the phlegm may be coming up right now. Well, you see, the question is, when did the cold begin? Not how, because
it's a chronic disease.
If it's a chronic disease, it has to be dealt with in a different way than I'm just waiting for this moment to pass. This type of this reality that we're dealing with racially in this country started at the beginning of the country. It didn't start 2 weeks ago. It's not a bad cold that started 2 weeks ago and you can cough up the phlegm and it'll go away. It's systemic, it's long-term, it has existed for a long, long time. The opportunity that we have right now is, okay, It's out in the open. The curtain has been pulled back on the wizard.
So hold it. So all right, let's get right into it. So when we come back, we'll ask, were we in remission for a while, or is this an acute attack of what has been this chronic disease? Stay with us.
No, I'm not a racist. I am the least racist person you have ever interviewed. That I can tell you.
You know, look, say what you want. You can say the president's not a racist. His way of expressing it is as juvenile and base as you can. You're shaking your head. I mean, nobody's in a contest for least racist that I know of other than him. But to the point of whether were we in some kind of remission for a while? I mean, look, the Black Lives Matter stuff is when you and I kind of got to know each other. That's been kind of on the back burner for publicity. I'm guessing there's still a lot of work being done out there.
There's a lot of work being done.
Okay, but you know, it's not on the top of the news cycle. The president takes all the air out of the room every day, but his remarks have caused a lot of the phlegm.
Well, you know,
were we in some remission? In other words, were we doing better? I thought we were doing better. In general, man to man, person to person, discourse in this country seems to be much better.
Well, I'm not so sure we were in remission as much as we were in denial. Which is,
maybe I'm in denial. Maybe I just want it to be better. And now I'll get, oh, you liberal, blah, 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 preach to the choir to your guests. I don't know what to say about it.
First of all, these issues have existed from the beginning of the country, as I indicated. But now, for the first time, these issues threaten the democracy. You know, a lot of times racial issues are particularly the victims of racism and racial issues, had the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to say, you know something, I believe in this. And as long as it is solid and in place, I know there's a chance that we're going to get through this. And through you know, segregation and Jim Crow laws and systemic racism and from immigration to housing to employment issues, as long as you had the Constitution to work with, you could always say, this is what we say we're trying to be. Let's be this. We want to be a part of this. We believe in this. I say in a number of the shows that I've written, black people believed in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution more than anybody in the history of this country have ever believed in it, because it was our salvation. You say this is what you are, be that. We believe that. That's why we could take to the streets and march and be water hosed and murdered and all of those things, because we believe that. But now that's being threatened. And it's not
specifically how?
It's threatened in the sense that this president and his base believe they can rewrite the rules to accommodate them, and nobody else matters. It doesn't matter if you support me or not. You know, I always laugh when I hear the term fake news. You know, because as a theater artist, I've been reviewed a lot of times. I've received some scathing, terrible reviews where I could have easily said, that reviewer had no idea what they were talking about. That's fake news. Then the next week, the next month, they'd give me a great review. Well, if they were wrong the first time, they're wrong the second time too. So when you talk about fake news, what are you talking about? Well, a
review is an opinion, but I get your point.
But
you're talking about their credibility.
The credibility says, if it's fake news when you criticize me, isn't it fake news when you support me?
Right. The institution is, you know, it can't be only fake when the institution is targeting you.
And we are at a place.
I think most people get it. There's so much reference to fake news, it's almost become just a Trumpism that people discount.
Well, but it's still used as a foundation to do things.
Well, he's trying to make it influence the Russian investigation, that's for sure.
Well, you know, I want to talk about the Russian investigation because part of what I believe now is, first of all, I believe the Russians did interfere, but it didn't start with Trump. It started in 2000 with Bush v. Gore, when an outside force looked at our democracy and said, their most sacred process, the electoral process, can be compromised. Mm-hmm. And it's vulnerable. And you remember 4 years later, the same thing happened in Ohio. And then you add on voter suppression laws and things like that. So what the Russians did was, first of all, I don't think they thought Trump was going to win. And you know, it didn't even matter if Trump or Hillary won, because you don't destroy or disrupt the democracy from the people at the top of it, even though they could have a great influence. They took advantage of a situation that already existed. There was discontent, there was anger, jobs were being lost, there were economic issues, and they said, you know what? The way you destroy America is not by military force. You destroy it from within. You pit this group against this group, and all you need really is somebody to champion one side or the other, and they found it.
Well, it's not an unfamiliar strategy. We've been doing that with foreign adversaries all our entire history.
And now it has happened to us. Like I said, it didn't matter who won the election because the divide had already happened. Now the question is, but the other side of it is, as an African American looking at it saying, we knew the bear was behind the curtain the whole time. We've been saying for 250 years, there's a bear behind that curtain that could destroy us all.
And what is the bear?
The bear is racism. The bear are those elements that essentially allow us to be pitted against each other.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about whether the bear can be tamed. Stay with us. I think one of the hardest things that in trying to get our feet on the ground regarding the S-hole story.
Yes. Shameful.
This president won't, he just won't admit that it happened and then offer some plan of reconciliation, apology, and or defense. Yeah. What he's done is said it didn't happen. And so it impacts how we all discuss it. Most people, I think, believe that he's not telling the truth. There's a crowd of people in this country who are more worried about policies, a wall, and that's another foible of the president. He's character flawed up the wazoo, so let's just add that to the list and look past it. How are we going to tame this bear? And is this just a spike in the problem, or is this the beginning of a real difficulty here?
Well, Martin Luther King in his letter from Birmingham City Jail showed that we're a project that we are very deeply invested in.
At the theater?
At the theater, we on the 14th, on last Sunday, we did the first production. It was so widely accepted and popular, we're having to do it again a number of times.
What was this play?
It was a dramatic reading of Letter from Birmingham City Jail.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. I thought you had called it something else.
No,
okay.
And
yeah, you got some good publicity in the paper.
We got terrific publicity, and we're very grateful for that. But one of the things that the letter says very clearly is the only way you heal a deep wound is to uncover it with all of its ugliness and pus and rot and all of those things. The only way you can heal it is in the light of day and fresh air. That's all, but when you deny that the wound exists at all, or if the wound doesn't affect you directly, then you don't have to pay any attention to it. So, so part of what we're dealing with in this country now are people who are saying, why am I having to deal with these things? Well, because they didn't affect you doesn't mean that they don't affect other people. And those people who are being affected no longer care that you're being inconvenienced by the truth, but by the reality of what is happening. And it's been happening for a long period of time. You can go back to the Civil Rights Movement and look at some of the responses that said, why are you marching? And why are you boycotting stores on Easter Sunday and Christmas? Because that affects us. The Montgomery bus boycott didn't end because the city council and the mayor said this is the right thing to do. It came to an end because the bus company was going out of business. Because black people in the city said we don't care that you're being inconvenienced. We'll walk first. And now we're dealing with that element in this country where people are saying, you know what, I'm sorry you're being inconvenienced, but the truth must be dealt with. And the only way you can make progress is to pull back that gauze, show the wound, see what's happening.
Well, he's never going to do that.
But see, it's not his responsibility to do that, it's ours. And because he, you know, I mean.
So you don't need him to verify the wound exists. We're just going to assume the wound exists and try to heal it.
And whether the Russians
around him
meant to do it or not, what they did was they helped pull back the wound, the gauze off the wound.
Of racism.
Of racism in this country. Racism, this class
be
issues.
acute, 30 seconds on this. They pull back the wound of racism by their intervention in the election. How so? By the election of Trump? You said it was irrelevant that he got elected.
It didn't matter who won the election because even if he had lost, he was going to be the head of the opposition anyway.
Gotcha.
So if Hillary had won, her biggest detraction, if you will, was going to be what was happening from the Trump-led side. And it's not terribly different than when on Barack Obama's first inauguration night, a group of lawmakers get together and said, we're going to oppose everything he's for. We're going to make sure he's a one-term president.
So you're saying outside forces, Russian or otherwise, recognize that the beauty of this country and its diversity is its Achilles heel.
It's its Achilles heel. But if we are going to save our democracy, and I do call it our democracy, we're going to have to deal with that question, that issue, forcefully, faithfully, and consistently. It's not a cold that's going to go away after you take a shot of penicillin and 2 aspirin. It's going to go away because we proactively work toward saving the democracy and building, you know.
Yeah, we got to change our diet.
Yes,
yeah,
we do.
Yeah, got it. I get it. 30 seconds. People come to the theater in the next 3 weeks for what? What's going on?
Well, on the 27th and 28th, we're doing a remount of Letter from Birmingham City Jail, and then we're going to 4 cities around the state with the same show.
Oh, good.
To open up the dialogue about the issues that we are facing. That's the first level of decency is dialogue.
Yeah.
And the dialogue in this country has gotten to the point where there's no civility left anymore, and there's no decency left in it.
Right. Well, I'm sure you'll take that approach. We will link to the Mixed Magic Theater schedule on our website at foxprovidence.com, so make sure you check that all out. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
All right. The final word when we come back. Stay with us. All right, tomorrow night, we're just going to forget all the issues. I got 2 lugheads in here to talk sports, Gresh and Caracas. Well, maybe just Gresh is the lughead, but that's an affectionate term. No, we have a real good conversation on the Patriots, their legacy, and what happens on Sunday. And next week is Powerhouse State House. It's the Speaker of the House, the Governor, the Senate President, and the minority leaders, respectively, all coming in one after the other all week long. So be here. See you on the radio at 3 tomorrow on WPRO. Good night.